because we need to get this live out there. Share the live because we want to get this thing out there.
Speaking of live, we are also now live on YouTube as well as TikTok. So let's get going, guys. Inspiration Nation.
Okay.
Hello, Lee Kemp, Ryan Boniface, Jose Noya, Inspiration Nation. We are here for another dose of inspiration. And I'm very excited to say that Ryan is up this week to I was trying to think of the word.
Here we go.
Maneuver the aeroplane of food of inspiration into our mouth. That was terrible. Let's just what have you got?
Aeroplane of food. What is
you
this?
know, like when you do
Where is
that,
he going with this?
open your mouth for the airplane, but it's not food, it's inspiration.
Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, yeah.
Old man forgets his line over there.
I completely stumbled over that whole thing. It was terrible. Should we start again? Inspiration Nation. Right, go Ryan, go. What have you got for us?
Okay, so my quote, and those of you that have listened to the podcast before or repeatedly will know that I like to use quotes from films or TV shows and try and take it slightly into fiction and applying those kind of rules to real life.
Is this a Harry Potter one? Is that what this is?
Yeah, I did The Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, you did. That's true. You did.
That was great.
It was good chat.
Yes, because you weren't here. So,
oh,
burn.
No, I'm joking. Of course. So this week's quote comes from a TV show called The Sopranos.
Ooh, I've heard of that.
Top 5.
Top 5. Nice. And the quote is, someday soon, you're going to have families of your own. And if you're lucky, you'll remember the little moments like this that were good. This is said by Mr. Tony Soprano himself. And I've always been quite a big fan on throughout our journey on this podcast about looking back down the mountain and being appreciative of what we've done and kind of being kind of proud of things we've overcome or decisions we've had to make or things we've been a part of. And it's all very, very quick and easy to move on to the next thing and start the big next project. And I think, Lee, you were quite in agreement with this because you started journaling at some point last year.
Yes.
And I think you were journaling to write down some of the things that were good and perhaps some of the things that weren't so good, but it allowed you to also reflect on these little moments as the quote kind of suggests. And we've had conversations around specifically looking back down the mountain and all this other self-improvement gospel, if you like. But sometimes I think TV shows or fictional projects have a way of, I'm not sure this is the word, but laymanizing.
That's a word now, and it's not.
Yeah, it's been created.
In fact, you know what it means. It means that it works. Have a way of laymanizing kind of big, important kind of methods or phrases to kind of help it feel relatable to real life. And that's one of the reasons why I pick fictional quotes and things like that. So, yeah, I kind of want to have a chat around how you guys these days kind of look back down that mountain and look at the things that we've achieved or you've achieved or the people around you have achieved and how you help others do that around you as well.
Yeah, I love this. Lee, have you got anything on this before?
I just want to say I sincerely apologise for my Harry Potter quip earlier because Sopranos is a excellent source material to be drawing quotes from.
Right, so is Harry Potter. Just because you're of an age that it didn't apply to you doesn't mean it's not good.
I like how even I was going to say even a compliment you get right, but it was quite a backhanded compliment, really, wasn't it?
It was.
Anyway,
have you watched it yet? You said you were going to watch it.
No, not yet. I might do. We'll see. But Sopranos, nonetheless, great. And I really do like the quote. And the thing it makes me think of, and I think of this every so often myself, is the little moments bit in that quote. It's not. The big things are important, but day to day, you have a rhythm, you have a routine. The things that quite often stand out in your mind are the things that break that cycle. And they're not often big things. It might be little things where something happens. In my family, we have we always joke that when we all get together, we've got about 6 stories that we tell, and it's the same 6 stories every time, and we all laugh at them just as hilariously. And over the years, you might get a 7th, an 8th, or a 9th, but they're just these little pockets of moments that stick with all and resonate with us and make us laugh every time we tell the latest exaggerated version of the story as we talk about it. And I do. All of that makes me think when you say that quote, that's what it makes me think of, and I'm really conscious that even sometimes when you're having a day and you're like, oh, I wish I didn't have to do X. You know, when you're in and you're like, I've got to go out and do something, and it feels like an effort, but actually sometimes those things that break your routine are the things that you remember, that lead to good things, that lead to memories and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a ramble, but I really like that one. I feel that really applies to my life, and I do have those moments, and I do appreciate them.
Yeah.
And do you still journal?
I don't journal in the way that Joe did. I'm not sure you still do, Joe. About
Not so
like
much on and off. I'm trying to journal at the minute with Michael Singer's journal, but I did it when I was on my holiday on my cruise, so I've got to get back on it. I've got it by my bedside. I want to do back on it because I think it's still useful. But yeah, sorry, Lee, I've taken.
No, you're good. It's good because I do it through my backlog thing. So I have a list of things I want to achieve during the month. We talked about this in previous episodes, and I keep track of it. So I note down whether I did it or didn't do it and what I did instead. And actually, it's good because I've probably got like a 90% success rate, I'd say. So where I do have those days where it's like I haven't got time for it, or actually I just am knackered today, I can't deal with this, I can have that one day, and to Nick St. Joe says quite often, get back on the horse the next day and know that I've got that pattern. So I kind of track the less ordinary things, if you like, because there's things you have to do, just maintenance, you know, washing and washing up and all those kind of maintenance-y things. But then the non-maintenance-y things I have on that list, and I track what I do with them, so I don't just get caught up in the day-to-day. And that's kind of my version of journaling that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, and I'd agree that is a version of journaling. That is absolutely a version of it, because you are tracking what you're doing and tracking your wins, but also tracking the things that aren't working, but really recognising the wins, which is really important. 90% is amazing. It's bloody awesome. To be fair, it's a rate. You look at it as a stat anywhere, that would be an awesome percentage, wouldn't it?
I also tracked for the 6 weeks I did it my progress at the gym. So for that 6 weeks I did that. I mean, I've been paying, I'm going to say, for 8 months of the gym and got 6 months worth of use out of it so far. So I've fallen into the stereotypical pattern everyone does.
Yeah, and I'm still aiming to join the gym, but that's one thing that I haven't done yet. And but yeah, anyway, so going back to what you're saying about looking back down the mountain, and it's the little things. Yeah, I definitely think this podcast, one of them, in fact, I was talking to someone the other day about the podcast itself, and said when we started it, and it was before COVID, and that was just, this whole thing is a looking back down the mountain thing. And I'm so grateful for this podcast, because you could just go back and you could just see what we were like before the COVID, and now we are through that, and we are, coming at the end. And I remember us talking about, is it going to stay the same as it was before? Is it going to go back? And we was having that really good conversation. And, we're now in this new world where it's different. It's a sort of combination of both, which is incredible when you look back at where companies have had to move the needle to really get where we are. Anyway, and moving through that, and of course, as we look back down the mountain, this podcast we're going to, the war in Ukraine has happened, and now we've got, just recently, haven't we? We've got war going on with Hamas and Israel right now. These massive world events that are happening, and as I said, I think we talk about first world problems, we talk about our thing, but there's lots of things around the world that need to be looking at. But this podcast has been sort of a thread through all these challenges that are all going on. And the next one, I think we talked about it really recently, and Ryan, you started me off right now, so I don't know how long this is going to go on for, but we now are talking about the next revolution in human history, which we did talk about, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, didn't we, about AI. And this is going to be the next massive revolution, and our podcast is going to be going through this revolution, and Lee talks about it, and using AI to create some of the stuff on the podcast, which I'm really interested in. I've been doing it a little bit on YouTube,
and that's it. It's not just that we're going through it; we're integrating that with the podcast. And if any show notes today, blog that we put out, all of that will be AI produced now.
Yeah, so that's it. So everyone on TikTok who's listening, anyone's listening on YouTube, watching, listening. So that's what you're reading AI. This is how powerful it is. So I want to sort of really, that's my looking down the mountain in terms of the podcast in the space of what, 4.5, are we 4.5 years in? I'm starting to forget where we are now. Is it four? It's just because it's such a part of my life now. I think I've forgotten how long we're going. Is it 4.5, something like that? I think it's 4.5. Coming up for 5 in it somewhere.
Something like
Must
that.
be soon.
Yeah.
But personally, looking back down the mountain, and I love this thing about the little things. I wrote a couple of things down. Was as little breakthroughs you get. For me, is really just being grateful for being alive and having this life, and of course, looking back down the mountain again, Lee and Ryan is, my mum passed away, and we've done this podcast and we had them on the podcast. So there are lots of things that happen, but I'm really grateful that we had that episode with my mum on it. So those little things that seem little, oh come on mum, come on the podcast, and now it's like a really big thing. It was a little thing that transformed into something really big for me, right? So now I've got this whole thing. So this podcast has got a really place in my heart, but personally as well, I've grown as an individual. I've had those many breakthroughs. For me, it's like preaching every day. I've definitely changed from the beginning of the podcast to someone who just wanted to like get his podcast out. Really, I want to have really big things, and I'd love it to still be big, but I really appreciate what it is and what it's doing for me as an individual, and hoping that it impacts other people out there, and that you get value from it, and that us sharing our stories helps you, and that you can recognise what your, as Ryan said, what your wins are. There's little moments with your family, and in fact, I was having a chat with my children yesterday, and I was looking at stoicism. Stoicism was another thing we talked about in the podcast. Sorry about this, Ryan. It's like a whole review. One more thing. I'm going to say stoicism, and I've really got into that. We've got into that over the last sort of year and a half. But that whole thing about we're not going to be here forever, and really encouraging human connection, because I think in this world now we talked about for social media. We electronically more connected than anything else. But when I'm looking back at this podcast, I really want this whole thing to be about messaging about, let's really connect with people and have really decent conversations, and humanizing those conversations, and really finding out how people are feeling, what they're thinking. Because in the world of AI, this could you'd be chatting to a fake human. So I think it's more than ever, it's really this podcast is going to add that value, but we're going to utilize AI to expand the reach of it so people get that. But for me personally, I've really changed. Since coming off my holiday and reflecting, I'm really taking stock, and I'm sort of stop experimenting and posting little bits of video and stuff like that, which I've done. Actually, I went live Sunday on TikTok, just out of the blue. And I'm playing around with just going a bit more regular on live, just on the TikTok, but just maybe focusing on TikTok. I know, Lee, you focus on Twitter, but for me, it's just really trying to engender this human connection and the everyday challenge for every person. So my look back in Down the Mountain is that I think this podcast and I myself have recognised, for me myself, recognising that every day is great, and actually that the unplanned events that we do, or you do, like you go out, are the best events. That they just go, they turn into a really great night. And for this podcast, just to go out there and help everyday people with everyday challenges, because every day is a challenge, right? Every day's got a little challenge in it, and I think that for me is like this quote about those little things. It's these every week podcasts, everyday little gratitude things that I do when I go for my daily walk, are all the things that are happening because of what we're doing right now. It would not have stuck had we not had this podcast. I don't believe it would, and that for me is, I've got gratitude for that. And I just want to say hello to Flozzie on TikTok, because they said hello. So hello, Flozzie. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. Anyway, that's my bit of a ramble there, but there's a lot. I'm so great. I could go on for another hour, but there's so much I'm grateful for because of it. And looking back down the mountain, there's so much stuff I think we've coined that it could be over. So anyway, I'm over to you guys. That's it. I'm done.
Joe, you could always go on for another hour.
I could easily.
The joy of Joe. Ryan, what are your thoughts on your own quote and subject?
Generally, I'm quite bad at it. It's not something that I generally am quite good at. I like to move on to the next big thing, as I kind of alluded that some people will do. But I think I need to start taking a little bit of accountability to myself for kind of looking back down the mountain at those things. Um, I think as an example of that, it sounds a bit silly, but I've created a budget sheet for my own finances, things like that, so that I can try and keep a better track of that and my savings and stuff.
It's not silly. I've had one of them since I was about 21, I think.
That's why Lee's rich, everyone. There's no bite. I thought you were going to bite. You didn't bite.
I was trying to think of something witty to say, but I couldn't, so I'll just say yes.
Calm there. He just stayed.
Yeah.
He just sort of.
But it's something that I need to get better at managing, kind of expenses and stuff, and looking at money I'm saving, which I do pretty good at.
Well done.
I do pretty good at saving. Quite a bit of money. I've got a help to buy LISA set up for buying a house or a house deposit.
Good.
I've got kind of one of these fancy apps that pops up money that you spend and puts a certain amount of money away a month and things like that into different pockets. I highly recommend something like that. I've had that for about 2 years now, and it saved me like.
What's that app called? Quite like I've not. What's that app called? The one what it does is it take bits out of other accounts and puts them into other. Is that what it is?
So it's an app called Plum. Plum,
as in,
like the fruit.
Oh, it is, right? Okay.
And it essentially you link your bank account to it and you set it up any which way you want, and it'll deposit money from your account into it and can split it into multiple different things. I've set myself up a rainy day fund that's doing pretty well. I'm starting to try to transition from monthly direct debits for bills to paying things off yearly, things like car insurance, things like that. Really annoys me that if you pay by direct debit, they charge you like an extra 10-20%, whatever it is, because of the interest and stuff. Or it feels like it's 10-20% more. It probably isn't that much. But being able to pay it off all in one go means that it's easier for me, and I don't pay the interest, and I just have to save up that money throughout the year. It does that automatically for me. If I have events like I'm going away, then it will start divvying that money up. It's pretty good. I can send you an invite link for it, Joe, if you want.
Yeah, do that.
So you can have a look. It's a pretty good way of easy saving, and if you need the money back for whatever reason, then it'll give it back to you. It's absolutely fine. There's no kind of quibbles with that. As I say, I've used it for a good couple of years, and it's something that I've saved quite a lot of money with. But that kind of thing, and that whole kind of looking back down the mountain of where I was, kind of in my own life months ago. If I'm looking back up the mountain rather than down, if I've not had a good few months, and that's something that I need to get better at. That's another one of the reasons why I brought it up, because so I could start kind of making myself a little bit more accountable for those things.
Yeah, I remember, Ryan, when you were talking about this before, your finances, and you've done a really good job by the sounds of it from what you've done from, because I know you were like, this was early in the podcast you revealed this, didn't you? And this was what, a good few years, a couple of years ago maybe, I think. So it sounds like you've come a long way since then. So I think
I do okay.
Yeah,
I've sorted quite a lot of things out. Yeah. Do better with things that I need to do better with, really.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Ryan. Sometimes it's not the really big things, is it? It's not, it's the next big thing is, what can I change the small little things that I said that we always say improve those outputs that make a massive difference at the end. So yeah, I love that. But yeah, I totally agree with you with the little changes. And when you talked about the little savings, I'm really interested in that. And by the way, just to let the listeners know, we don't actually. This is something that Ryan uses. We're not. What they say in podcasts they usually say. Oh, if you isn't, it's something Ryan actually uses as a genuine recommendation. Isn't it?
It's not a sponsor. We're not affiliated.
That's it.
We
That's
make no money from it.
No, that's why Lee posts this
not
podcast.
a hashtag ad.
Yeah, it's not a tag. Yeah.
Other fruits are available.
Yes, but I love that. And again, for me, it is the everyday little habits. It's the little things that make a big difference. And it's even when I do my training and my coaching, people tend to, in all the places where I go and I train and all that coaching stuff, people always looking for the big change, the quick win that's going to get me everything. Well, just want to give you an FYI on this, is that it's not that. It just doesn't work. you can do a step change, but it doesn't last. It doesn't tend to last. We all blast something, and then it's just so hard to maintain it that we don't tend to maintain it. It does. Some people do it, but it's exception rather than the rule. But if you just make those smaller changes, like say for instance, looking back down the mountain ride, like you said, my health. You know, I've signed up to the Arnold Schwarzenegger. We talk about things. What is it called? Newsletter, and you talk about creatine, and they talk about turmeric. So I have that in my coffee. I put that in my coffee in every
Turmeric's
day.
supposed to help with
And I don't used to
back
do that.
as a natural
It
remedy.
is, so turmeric apparently, yeah, turmeric apparently is lower inflammation. So I take that every day because I play tennis and I just want to, you know, just lessen that. So yeah, and the creatine helps with muscle building, but I don't do muscle, but it's also endurance apparently. So, you know, these aren't recommendations. I'm not recommending anyone does it. It's just a very personal choice based on, you know, information that I've received from Arnold Schwarzenegger, who I respect greatly because he's gone there, got the T-shirt. So those are little things that are manageable. But if you said to me, all right, you've got down the gym and you got to like do 60 reps, you know, blah blah blah, whatever, this big thing, I'd be going that, you know, I'd try it and I could be pretty determined, but I think after a while it would be just too much. So the little things for me, the little changes, and looking back down the mountain, I've been doing that for a while now, and I've also been taking what's the other vitamins? I've been taking vitamin D and also the little fish oil capsules. So I'm just gradually introducing these things that are just helping me, and I feel a lot better. Still eating some not so great stuff as well. I'm not perfect living at all, but I think again it's like Arnold talks about, if you're doing this sort of stuff, you've got to, you know, add the little changes, but, you know, don't deny yourself, you know, the treat or whatever, because if you do, then you're going to always want it just to have it, but just recognize that, just get back, like you said, back on the horse, get back on it, but just maintain those little actions, because over time you'll gradually change your actions and your outlooks, and it does really, really work. And this is the stuff that we all share on the podcast, looking back down the mountain. We share our personal experiences, which we hope help you. But you don't have to do any of this. We're not saying you've got to do this. We're not saying it's not advice. It's just, if you take it away and it works, great. And that's what we're here to do. But no, Ryan, that's a really, really sparked off a lot, those little changes, because I think you've done really, really great what you've done. So yeah, I loved what you said there, and that sparked off a lot of thought.
It's not advice, it's inspiration.
Oh, Lee, you are spot on. That is why you are the host master.
The hostest with the mostest.
Yeah, I was trying to think of that, but I just forgot what it was.
That's right. You did well. Speaking of which, if you like what we're doing here, if you are inspired by the nation, head over to X, give us a follow at listen to Wayne, listen TOIN. I would say retweet our stuff, but repost our stuff, or whatever the kids are calling it these days. Follow Joe on TikTok, just Jose Noya _Inspirational. You can follow us live, do the same on TikTok, and whatever way you are listening to us now, hit subscribe, leave us a review, all that good stuff, all helps us in the algorithm. And of course, tell friends and family. That really does help us. Just give it a go each and every week. Right, what are we going to do for our takeaways before I wrap us up for this week? Jose, you first.
Oh, okay, going to me first. For me, it's all the small things that add up. And one more, sometimes the things that you don't plan turn out to be the best things. That's for me. 2
takeaways. He is greedy. He's not eating healthy. I'm going to say it's, remember the small things is what I'm saying. And Ryan, what is your takeaway from your own subject?
Don't be afraid to regularly check yourself.
Definitely some sort of joke I can make there, but instead I'm going to
Sorry,
thank everyone.
Ryan, I'm so sorry. I think Lee and I shared the
as
same
did I.
thought, right? Yeah.
As did I. We'll leave it at that. And that could be a takeaway as well.
sorry.
Doesn't have to
That
be
could be a
related.
takeaway.
Do
Doesn't have
you know,
to,
that's a
doesn't
really
have to
good
be related.
takeaway. But I'm not sure it's related, but it definitely is a really good takeaway. I love that. That's
And on that
brilliant.
note, I'm going to say thank you, everyone. We'll be back next week. 3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation.
Inspiration.
Catch you guys later.
I love that. That's so funny. Brilliant. That was so good. Thank you, Lee. Hey, TikTokers.